Legislation on Article 50 is expected to dominate discussions at Prime Minister's Questions today. Let's go live to Parliament's Central Lobby, where we can speak to Douglas Carswell, the UKIP MP for Clacton. Mr Carswell, thank you very much indeed for joining us. What are the questions you think Mrs May should be asked today?
Well, obviously she's going to be pushed on a bit more detail. We're all keen to know the detail, but the reality is the government can't really show its hand ahead of the negotiations. There are going to be some people perhaps on the half a dozen so-called Tory rebels, the Europhiles, who might demand a white paper. But, you know, I think the reality is that there's a clear majority in the Commons for triggering Article 50. And I think the resistance to the referendum outcome is crumbling pretty much everywhere apart from the Labour front bench. So, you know, with the exception of the SNP and the Labour front bench, you know, I think most people in the Commons now accept that the government now needs to get on and trigger Article 50. I don't think there's going to be the opposition that we feared there would be a couple of months ago.
What are the objections to having a white paper? As you say, we've had the speech from Mrs May, so putting that into white paper form presumably wouldn't really change anything very much.
Sure. Well, if I was a government minister and I was forced to produce a white paper on this, I would literally print off Theresa May's superb speech and call it a white paper. But look, I've been organising rebellions and insurgency in the House of Commons for a decade. And if you're reduced to demanding a white paper, you're losing. You're losing pretty badly. If that's the one thing that those who oppose the referendum outcome can latch on to, you're in pretty dire straits.
No, I mean, I might say that, you know, if we take the ruling yesterday by the Supreme Court at face value, they're simply saying there ought to be a parliamentary process and an act, and a logical way for Parliament to proceed in those circumstances is indeed to have a white paper. I don't understand why there is this level of resistance from people who want to get on with Brexit to it. I mean, it just seems to be the proper way of going about things.
Let's be clear. The courts made it clear that there needs to be legislation. They very specifically didn't stipulate the nature and length of that legislation. So we will see a bill. I think we'll see a bill probably tomorrow. And there will indeed be an act of Parliament requiring or requesting ministers to go ahead and trigger Article 50. But look, the people who are demanding a white paper aren't interested in the niceties of parliamentary protocol. What they are after is trying to frustrate Brexit. If we gave them a white paper, they would say that's not good enough. This is about a small number of people on the Labour front bench and one or two refusenicks in the Ken Clarke wing of the Tory party trying to stop and frustrate the referendum result. But they're in a minority. There will be a vote and they will lose, and we must respect them. But if the Labour front bench and one or two others want to try and defy the referendum, ultimately, even if they were successful, and they're not going to be, even if they were successful, they would face the consequences in a general election that would then follow, and that is ultimately the guarantor of making sure the Commons does the right thing.
Of course, that could mean Britain out with no deal in March of 2019.
Yeah. Leaving the European Union with no deal is preferable to a bad deal. David Cameron took the opposite view and said he had to get a deal at any price, which is precisely why he got such a duff deal and lost the referendum. Theresa May is doing absolutely the right thing by saying she's not going to go for a deal at any price. She is prepared to walk away. In doing that, I think common sense will prevail. I think we'll get a good deal on the free movement of workers as opposed to the free movement of people. I expect we'll see a good deal on financial services. I've been talking to quite a few people who were ardent Remainers a year ago, 6 months ago, and I think they're starting to realise that liberal Brexit can actually be made to work. And that pragmatism, that olive branch Theresa May has offered to the other side, is being taken up by many, many people. Unfortunately, the Labour front bench is still trying to resist the outcome of the referendum. But, and of course, the Scottish National Party see whatever happens as a pretext to complain and try and demand a second Scottish referendum. But with the exception of that, I think we're now starting to see a new political consensus. And, you know, I think Theresa May played a blinder a week ago when she made that speech. It's really wrong-footed, the Continuity Remain campaign.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Douglas Carswell.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.